All right, so I'm Scott from South Florida Insider, and I'm here with.
Joey Cape from Lagwagon.
So, first off, I mean, down here in Florida, I know you've been already on the road a couple of days. Anything crazy on the road in this short little part of the tour so far?
Just the usual stuff. We're having a really good time. Staying up too late, past our bedtime, and that kind of stuff. Last night we played the pre-fest, which was a first for us. We've done the fest before in Gainesville, but not the pre-fest in Tampa, and that was just like a class reunion. There's just so many bands that we knew, and so it was a party night. It was really fun. A little tired today, but hey.
Yeah, but the music's gonna wake you up, even if it is coming from yourself.
Sure, of course, yeah, I suppose.
And I know it kind of feels weird in a way, like playing with, like having some of these younger bands come out with you. But do you kind of feel like, does it kind of translate into nostalgic feelings? Is it humbling? I mean, what's kind of the feeling bringing on some of these young upcoming bands?
Well, I mean, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to us if they're young or old. It only matters to us if we like the bands. Most importantly, at first their music, because often we've never met the bands before we tour with them. Well, I wouldn't even say often, because we do tour with a lot of bands that we've known for a long time. But it generally the case with a younger band. We might not know them, but we know their music and we like their music and we think they're good. And so, yeah, there is some pleasure in the idea that you're helping them get exposure. But it's even better when you like them. And so far, the guys in both the bands we're touring with are just great. They're really sweet people.
Yeah, and it's got to be really, even again, that word humbling's got to come up, because I mean, you're seeing fans that probably got going listening to your music even before they were teenagers. Now here they are, and they're still out there in front of the crowd, hearing every song played as early as Mr. Coffee and all that. I mean, for me personally, that's where it first came up. I was maybe 10 years old at the time, first listening to you guys.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that you keep doing something like this because you love it. So it has to be enjoyable, or else sooner or later the band would implode. There's many cases where bands are very unhappy and they eventually break up, but we all still really love what we do, and there's just not any issues there. I think another possibility would be that if we had gotten to a point at some point where we weren't really drawing any people to our shows, that would have probably destroyed us sooner or later too. But that hasn't happened yet either. I feel like knocking on wood right now, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's still really great, and I can speak for myself. I still really get a great feeling about the synergy that happens at the shows with the people that come and us, and the band. The band still has probably in some ways better chemistry than we've ever had. I suppose because it's sort of seasoned. It's been a long time. But yeah, it's all good. Absolutely.
So do things kind of feel new with the recent album Hangar, or is it kind of a refresher course, or?
That was a much needed thing, and I was gonna say, I think the other thing was we hadn't had an album in so long, and when you don't have new material, there are points where it feels a little bit, it gets a bit boring because you played these songs 1,000 times, and somehow there's still a great energy in a lot of the old songs that we've played a million times, because it's just up to the audience to either make it or break it. If they're into it, we're into it. But when we made Hang, I would say that was definitely a much needed kind of shot in the arm, and it definitely it stoked the band quite a bit, especially because it was the most collaborative album we've ever made. We really, maybe since the first couple records, it was the most collaborative, and in many ways it was more collaborative than those records even. We really, just took all the material from its base and we put it all together, together in a room, and there was a lot more of us in a room together working on material than there was with previous albums. I think in the past there was a lot more of me bringing things that were nearly kind of complete, arranged, and with this album there was a lot more of just sitting around talking about where a song can go and what it can do, and then me going back to the drawing board a little bit. But people in this band wrote more than they did on this record, at least in a long time, and I think that's why it really succeeded in bringing some kind of unifying theme back to the band. I don't know, we love playing the new material. We love it. I kind of wish we could just play the whole new record every night,
Yeah.
But, you have to play old stuff too.
So it's not one of those things where you guys are like beating each other up because you want this song to be the one getting released on the record, going live?
No, fortunately, there aren't really all that many songwriters, and I write almost everything, so...
But there's got to be that cohesion, though, right?
Yeah, definitely, and that's always been the case. If I'm not a selfish writer, I write music and I want everybody to be happy. I know that a happy band is a good band. So, it's everybody puts their stamp on everything that I write in any band that I play in, and that's just how it's supposed to be. Otherwise, you're just hiring a pickup band. Like the old days, they would just have a songwriter and they'd get him a pickup band. Sometimes they would tour and he'd have a different pickup band in every town. That was a traditional thing that people did. I think that would be fun, but I don't really get it because, again, like a creative, happy outlet for any musician makes a better musician and makes a better band, makes a better song. More points of view, I think no matter how many songs you've written, and even perhaps the more songs you've written, the more you know this, you are sort of one-dimensional as a songwriter in many ways. You have kind of these go-to chord progressions, and they're just things that make sense to you, and so you tend to repeat those things, and by having other voices involved, that will take you in different directions.
So it's not like deja vu then?
No, not on the new one anyway. There's definitely been songs where I knew it was very similar structure-wise, but you're usually not on the new record at all, though.
Yeah.
But in the old days, there have been cases where there's been a song that I thought, structure-wise, I know by dissecting this is a very similar song to this song and this song and this song. There was one song on an album that was sort of, you have these working titles, and a lot of times when I have one of those songs, it's sort of like Pachelbel's Canon, like this chord progression that I've used so many times. It might be in a different key, but it's a very similar chord progression feel. There was one time there was a song, and typical Joey song was the working title, and I literally at the last moment changed the name of it. I was going to leave it on the record as entitled that.
What song was that?
It was something on...
Which album?
I think it was on Resolve.
Okay.
I don't know. I actually don't know. Isn't that bad? They would know.
Well, you've been kind of doing this thing long enough. I think you got a nice bit of excuses.
Yeah, and I do a lot of other records with other bands, so
Exactly.
sometimes I forget things. But you get forgetful as you do more of it, I guess. But yeah, ultimately, it's good to have other voices and other people that are kind of fact checked. Like they literally, one of these guys might say to me, "This reminds me an awful lot of blah blah blah," and then I'll say, "Oh, right. Better change a couple chords here, or take it somewhere different, different scale." And
so it's got to be great.
Thing.
Yeah, it's got to be great to have that resolve where you don't feel like you're being attacked for something you came up.
Yeah,
but
no.
Everybody's working together.
It's just as I get older, it becomes less and less precious, and more about this, working well together so that we can achieve the best thing we can achieve, and that's true of like how we play songs, how we record songs, and how I write songs, and I think it is something that's sort of a very typical thing of songwriters and bands to be kind of I don't know. I don't want to say delusional because it's too strong a word, but they get pretty self-absorbed because you're always doing this catharsis thing, and you know you're being trying to be transparent. And lyrics alone, there's something about it that causes a lot of people to be very, very precious about it. You know.
With all the songs that I mean, obviously you've probably written hundreds and hundreds of stuff that's never even got released, or maybe you just didn't have the final product.
Well,
could you see? I mean, is a B-side or anything like that even feasible?
I don't know, because
I mean, that's not really Lagwagon's thing, but
well, I mean, it would be really cool if there was enough good material. I think there's probably enough for a strong EP somewhere. You know, I know specifically recordings of songs that we all really like that never came out.
especially in this digital age too.
Yeah, like we could do something like that, but you know, it's just I guess it's just there's always that feeling like, but we need to move on, and we've evolved a lot, and I like the last record we made better than anything we've ever done. In fact, I think it's my favorite record that I've ever made with anyone, and so to me, regardless of how people react to it, although Hang got maybe the best critical acclaim we've ever gotten any record we did, so that's just a bonus though. I mean, you have to be self-indulgent about these things, but I don't,
but from the
I
same
don't
perspective,
see any reason to go back, you know, or look back. I just think it's not honest, and when you get away from honesty, you get away from integrity, and you get away from conviction, and you get away from those things that people hear that make them like things, you know.
And it could almost structure you in a different way that you don't want to be.
It's just not a really good idea to be calculated about anything, and that's why, you know, getting back to that earlier point we were both talking about, this idea of collaboration, this idea of listening to other voices and other people. The important part of that is that you have to be smarter than where these things will you to go. They will you to go to a place that's going to destroy your band. So you just have to be a little bit smarter than that and say, no, I'm not going to let that happen. And then it keeps everyone happy, it keeps everybody into it, and then it's more fun. It's kind of one of those weird things that a lot of times I'll be talking to people that are younger that are in bands, and they ask, you know, how do you manage to keep your band together that long? Or there's bands that we've known, many bands over the years that have broken up, and I'll be hanging out with one of them because he's a good friend, you know, and he'll be saying, yeah, man, we just couldn't keep it together. We just had, our problems were just too big, and I just know that anything and everything that possibly happened to a band has happened to our band, and we kept it together. You know, you got to work through it. It's just like any family. You know, there's going to be some very serious drama along the way.
It's like that marriage. I mean, it really is.
It is. I mean, you might even have a phase where two people in a band don't speak to each other really at all for a year. That happens, and when it happens, you know, you get better and better at fixing those things faster. And after a while...
So is that almost becoming your role then?
It's everyone's role in the band. I mean, everybody kind of grows up in it. So anybody in our band now, I think when a real problem starts to arise, I think we all want to fix it as quick as possible because we want it to be all good.
And I guess kind of just wrapping it up, I mean, down the road, how many years is this going to keep going? I mean, you guys are loving it right now. I mean, it just seems like the years keep going up and up, but I mean, like, you could go on YouTube, see one of these live shows, and then you go back even years later, and you still see that same energy. I mean, like, are you going to be, like, in a retirement home and still playing in front of the senior crowd?
Well, admittedly, in the last 10 years, there are people in the band, and I'm not naming anybody, but, most of us have certain physical problems that will eventually, make it very difficult to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's sort of where the saying comes from, till the wheels fall off, you know. I think at some point you just kind of realize, well, this is it. This is what I did with my life, and I can't stop because I don't have anything else and I don't want anything else. This is all I know how to do and only all that I love, and so it's going to be my body that will stop me. And that's probably why people like Lemmy Kilmister, are still doing what he does, and he's having heart attacks on stage this last tour, and he's probably going to die this year or next year. And he says it just the same way. He says, this is what I do. I'm going to be on stage when I go or something. That might happen. I don't know if in a band situation like ours, if something like that happened to one of us, that might end the band though, because I don't know how we've gotten past a lot of deaths over the years.
Yeah, especially with Tony.
Tony was a big one, but we've had deaths in our band too. And we had a death in our band, but we've had a lot of that kind of thing. But I think if it were an active band member, yeah, I'm just not sure what I think, because the band has a unified personality too.
Yeah.
And I'm just not. That might be it. So it'll probably be me or Flip.
and then it really is and then it really is the solo work.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, man.